Welcome to Industrial Organization and Psychology. For this one, we're going to talk about the employee selection and evaluating employee performance. And this is chapter number 7 of Industrial Organization Psychology of Michael Amod. All right. Overview. Step one, determine the reason evaluating employee performance. Step number two, we're going to identify the environmental and cultural limitations. Step three, determine who will evaluate. Four, select the best appraisal method to accomplish your goals. Five, train raters. Six, observe and document performance. Seven, evaluate performance. Step eight, communicate appraisal results to employees. Step nine is to terminate employees. Okay? We're going to learn the what is the 360-degree feedback, know how to create a performance appraisal instrument, know how to administer a performance appraisal system, okay, and so on and so forth. All right. For the topic one, we're going to talk about now the evaluating employee performance. So, some of you might experience this one. Why I got 2.79 in my GPA? Supposedly, I already passed all the requirements that my instructor needed for me to be able to have, or I am expecting a much higher grade. Why am I got 2.79? Okay. This section is similar um with how our teacher rated us. Okay? Or how the instructor rated us. Hindi lang siya basta-basta na i-rate ka according do sa exam mo. Okay? There are lots of factor din. Same with the employee performance. Hindi mo siya basta-basta i-relate nang wala kang basis and wala kang sinusundan. So this will be the flow. Okay, I'm not sure if you guys see this one, but you may check on page number 278 of the Michael Amod book of Industrial Organization Psychology. Okay? So, isa-isayin natin yan lahat. Now, step one is to determine the reason for evaluating employee performance. Ano yung reason bakit natin siya kailangang evaluate? First bullet, providing employee training and feedback. Okay, the most important use of performance evaluation is to improve the employee performance by providing feedback about what employees are doing right and wrong. Okay, halimbawa, kailangan ng employee ng magkaroon ng training kasi bumababa yung yung ano niya, yung performance niya. Okay? So, kailangan natin siya i-train kung bakit ganun nangyayari or what are the solutions that we need to do para maging motivated si employee or either para mas magampanan niya maayos yung isa niyang work task. Kasama dito is to yung performance appraisal review. Okay? The semi-annual review is excellent time to meet with employees to discuss their strengths and weaknesses. Okay? So, ginagawa itong performance appraisal review semi-annual. Pwedeng 6 months. Okay? That's semi-annual. Sa 1 year kasi, that is annual. When we say semi-annual, it is 6 months. Okay? Every after 6 months, evaluate mo sa employee regarding to the task na ginawa niya. Okay? Dito din, sa performance appraisal review mo maging basis, okay, kung tataasan mo ng sahod sa employee or kailangan mo siyang bigyan ng training. Okay, kung ano yung mga task na nagampanan niya maayos, ano yung mga mali niya, may mga incident report ba siya, ano yung mga conflicts na nagawa niya for the past 6 months. Okay, lahat yun naka-indicate. Determining salary increases. Okay? As what I'm saying earlier, kailangan natin mag-evaluate employee performance not only by mag-provide ng feedback, but also to determine kung kailangan natin taasan ng appraisal or kailangan magbigay ng salary increase kay employee. Okay? One basis din to kung bakit tayo nag-evaluate ng employee performance to number one, kung kailangan ng feedback. Number two is to ma-determine kung kailangan bang taasan ng sahod sa employees. Next, kung kailangan natin magbigay ng promotion. Okay? Ano yung factors para mabigyan natin siya ng promotion? Nag-evaluate tayo ng employee performance para matingnan kung karapat-dapat ba si employee ma-promote. And for this, papasok ulit dito yung Peter Principle. Okay, so na-discuss na natin to sa lesson number 4 and 3. Si Peter Principle, yung i-promote mo si employee na kung saan ay hindi niya kaya yung gagawin niya. Okay? I-promote mo si employee kasi napakalayo or hindi align doon sa dating niyang trabaho. Okay? We need also evaluating employee performance. Syempre, hindi mawawala sa isang company na kapag hindi naging maayos si employee. Okay? Nakapagbigay ka na ng training and hindi pa rin nabago yung performance niya or yung performance review niya, kailangan natin siya i-terminate. Okay, halimbawa, tardiness. Okay, nagbigay ka ng training about tardiness or memos regarding on that one, tapos hindi pa rin siya naging maayos, sapat na itong dahilan para i-terminate natin sa employee. Example would be in sales. Kung hindi nare-reach ng isang salesman or sales lady yung quota niya for that month and nagbigay ka na ng training, anong kailangan niyang gawin in regarding to sales, is kailangan mo na siyang i-terminate si employee. Okay? Doon ka na magka-come up ng termination decision by using the evaluating employee performance. Alright, so step number two, identify environmental cultural limitations. In an environment in which there is no money available for merit pay, developing a numerical complex system will become frustrating and the result of evaluation may not be taken seriously. In environment in which employees are very cohesive, the use of peer ratings might reduce the cohesiveness. Okay, so for this one, kailangan natin na hanggang saan lang ba ang kaya dapat ng employee? Hanggang saan lang ba, not kaya, but yung limitation niya regarding doon sa workloads. Okay? Number 3, determine who will evaluate the performance. So, kailangan natin malaman kung sino-sino ba, sa step number 3, kung sino-sino ba ang mga tao na dapat mag-evaluate ng performance ni employee. We have 360 feedback to use regarding on this. The 360 feedback and multiple source feedback. Sources of relevant information about employee performance include supervisor, peers, subordinates, customer, and self-appraisal. Okay, so explain natin yan mamaya. Kung bakit kailangan natin i-consider yung supervisor, peer, subordinate, and customer self-appraisal is because of para hindi tayo maging subjective. Na i-evaluate natin si employee na gusto lang natin kasi hindi maganda yung tingin natin kay employee, yung sama tayo ng loob or maaring hindi natin treat si employee para dun sa company. Okay? Or may nagawa siyang mali para sa atin na hindi natin nagustuhan. Tapos, gagawin nating reason yun para hindi siya i-promote or gagawin nating reason yun para i-terminate si employee, which is hindi dapat. Okay? Or masyadong lenient sa atin si employee and as HR, you are also lenient. You are very close with an employee. Sapat ba na evaluate mo si employee dahil sa close siya sa'yo? Okay? In school setting, sapat ba na i-evaluate mo ang isang teacher? Ilagay natin sa school setting na kung saan ang mag-evaluate lang sa student, sa isang teacher, ay isang section lang? Bakit isang section lang kung ang tuturuan niya is 9 sections? Okay? So, Sapat na ba yun kung na-evaluate mo na si employee na nakuna mo na lahat ng 9 sections na yun at sinabi hindi maganda ang pagtuturo. Halimbawa, me, Sir Angelo, okay, sabihin, mababa si Sir Jello kasi ito yung evaluation sa kanya ng student. Sapat ba na kumuha lang tayo doon sa student? Okay? Sa subordinate? Or mas okay siguro kung tingnan natin yung peers? Yung appraisal niya, yung self-appraisal niya kung paano niya evaluate yung sarili niya also. Okay? Dapat dito, tinatanong din natin si employee, okay, and also employee, me as an employee, tinatanong din natin kung bakit ganun kataas ang evaluation or bakit ganun kababa ang evaluation to have a self-realization. Or baka naman may something na nangyayari kaya ganun yung evaluation sa kanya ng student niya if ang i-evaluate mo ay teacher. Okay? Or kaya ganun ang evaluation ng isang customer sa kanya is because of may hindi tayo inaasahan na mangyari or na nangyari. So this is a diagram. Kapag tayo nag-evaluate ng performance, hindi natin nakikita yung buo yung akto ng isang empleyado within the organization. Ito na nakikita na part ng supervisor. Okay? Yung certain amount lang or certain part lang ng isang empleyado. Okay? Maaring mabait si employee pagkaharap niya si supervisor, pero pag wala na, hindi naman talaga siya gumagawa or gumagawa lang si employee kapag nandiyan si supervisor, pero pag wala na, is pumipetics na siya. Also, evaluate din natin yung observed by the employee. Yung kung ano sa yung nakikita sa kanya ng co-workmates niya. Also, yung mga subordinates niya, sa example dito, yung mga guards, paano niya ba taratuhin? Or mabait lang ba si employee dito sa guards? Or mabait ba si employee dito sa kako-employee niya? And sa peers na iba niya pa mga kasama. Okay? So, kaya kailangan natin si 360 degrees para makita natin kung hindi isang part lang nakikita natin to evaluate an employee. Alright, so malinaw. Okay, as what I'm saying earlier, we have here, ikaw ito, or ako ito. Alright? Itong part na to, self-appraisal, at this is the employee. Halimbawa, dumating tayo sa sales. Okay? Meron tayong secret shopper. Pwede ito sa mga salesman na kung saan may isang tao na mag-act ng kung paano yung self-service niya or not the self-service, kung paano mag-service ang isang empleyado. Halimbawa, crew sa isang fast food chain. Okay? I-evaluate niya kung tama ba yung standard na ginagawa nito ni crew. Okay? Tapos, i-evaluate din ni peers yung actual behavior. Subordinate, sino-sino yung mga subordinate na yun na iba na pwede pang mag-evaluate sa kanya. Pwedeng guards. Okay? Titingnan ko ano yung attitude niya towards dun sa organization. And also, the supervisor. Okay? And bakit natin kailangan ng self-appraisal assessment? Para ma-realize din ng isang empleyado kung anong klase yung ginagawa niya sa company. Okay? Self-realization din to. Okay? How are you going to rate yourself for the past 6 months? Okay? Etong 360 degree, usually, here in the Philippines, hindi ito nagagawa lahat, which is wrong. Ang nagagawa lang dito is supervisor and then employee, and then employee i-rate niya yung sarili niya. Okay? And customer, kung BPO, yung stats niya towards do sa ginawa niya sa isang organization for the past 6 months. Okay? Peers, hindi naman, peers, maaring hindi na ito ginagawa ng ibang mga BPO kung sa BPO tayo titingin. Okay? Yung ibang 360 method, hindi na i-include kung paano nila nire-rate o yung mga co-workmates nila, kung paano nila nire-rate yung co-workmates nila. Okay? So, at these all factors need kailangan sa isang pag-evaluate ng employee performance. Okay? So that's why it's called 360 degrees because paikot siya. Paikot lahat ng part of the organization na nakakasalamuha ni employee is dapat nare-rate and also employee itself also. The next step in the performance appraisal process is to select the performance criteria and appraisal methods that will best accomplish your goals for the system. Criteria are ways for describing employee success. That is step number 4. Select the best appraisal method to accomplish your goals. Anong klaseng appraisal methods ang kailangan mong gawin? After mo ma-determine kung sino yung mag-i-evaluate. Okay? Number 1, decision 1, focus on appraisal dimension. Trait focus performance dimension. A trait focus system concentrates on such employee attributes as dependability, honesty, courtesy through commonly used. Trait focus performance appraisal instruments are not a good idea because they provide poor feedback and thus will not result in employee development and growth. Okay, so kung anong klaseng trait na napopossess doon sa employee na yon. Okay? So, kailangan natin din i-identify. But, bakit siya tinatawag na hindi daw ito maganda para doon lang tayo mag-focus doon sa trait niya? It's kasi mababa yung, kung titingnan natin yung validity, okay? Kung doon lang tayo magkakandak sa kung anong klaseng trait personality ng tao na yon. Next, for decision 1, focus on appraisal dimension, the only developmental advice that supervisor can offer would be to be more responsible and friendly. Halimbawa, kung ang trait na ito ng employee ay hindi siya okay, halimbawa, si employee ay hindi ganon ka-attach sa mga peers niya. Okay? Kasi sabihin natin na asocial itong si employee. Hindi siya pakikisalamuha dun sa mga ka-employee niya. And that is a trait. But the least thing that the supervisor can advise to this employee is to be more responsible and friendly. Okay? Pwede natin sabihin na ganun. That's why hindi lang dapat sa trait tayo nagpo-focus kapag tayo methods ng kapag tayo nag-evaluate. Competency-focused performance dimension. Rather than concentrating on employees' traits, competency-focused dimension concentrate on the employees' knowledge, skills, and abilities. Okay? Pwedeng, ito yung case-out. Okay? Pwede tayong, hindi lang pwedeng sa traits tayo mag-focus, pwede din nating tingnan din yung knowledge, skills, and abilities niya. Okay? Kung maalam ba siya din sa work, ano yung mga kaya niya pang gawin? Okay, ano yung mga skills niya? The advantage to organizing dimension by competency is that it is easy to provide feedback and suggest the step necessary to correct deficiencies. Bakit? Kasi alam natin kung ano yung kailangan improve ng isang empleyado. Halimbawa, mababa siya sa knowledge, kailangan natin siya pwedeng bigyan ng training or seminar. Okay? That is, if an employee is evaluated as having poor writing skills, halimbawa, itong employee na to ay sa isang task niya or sa isang work niya ay kinakailangan niya magsulat. Okay? So, pwede natin makorek yung bagay niya, pwede natin bigyan siya ng isang training kung paano yung tamang proper writing kung isa man siya sa nagsusulat dun sa organization. Okay, same with this task. Sa task-focused performance dimension naman, are organized by similarity of tasks that are performed. The advantage of this approach is that because supervisors are concentrating on tasks that occur together and can thus visualize the employee's performance, it is often easier to evaluate performance than with the other dimensions. The advantage is that it's more difficult to offer suggestion for how to correct the deficiencies of an employee score law on dimension. Okay? So, nakafocus naman ito dun sa task niya. na ilan ang nagagawa niya. Okay? Example of na pwedeng gamitin ng task focus performance, example dito is yung public relation officer. Okay? So, maaring dahil sa hindi siya magaling sa public speaking, hindi niya nagagampanan yung pagiging PR niya doon sa public relation if that is the certain job na in-applyan niya, hindi dahil sa mahiyain siya, okay, yung task niya na yun is bumababa. So, pwede natin siya magbigyan ng ang kagandahan na makikita natin agad yung kung saan tayo pwede mag-concentrate. Okay? However, sabi nga, disadvantage is mahirap i-correct to. Kunyari, kung dahil dun sa personality niya, kaya hindi niya na nagagampanan yung isang task na yun, mahirap siya i-correct. Okay? Task focus performance also, the fourth type of performance dimension is to organize the appraisal of the basis of goals accomplished by the employees. The advantage of goal focus, sorry, this one is goal focused performance. Okay, not a task focused performance dimension. Okay, the goal of goal focused approach is that it makes easier for an employee to understand why certain behaviors are expected. Okay, so dito kailangan makita kung ano yung goal ng isang employee within the organization. Okay? Kung hindi na-meet nito sa goal-focused performance, ang isang bagay na kailangan niyang ma-achieve ay ma-identify natin agad kung ano yung dapat baguhin. Alright, dun sa contextual performance, inclusion dito the behavior of an employee within the organization, as what I'm saying earlier. Kailangan marunong din siya makisama or makibagay doon sa within the organization. Okay? Halimbawa, yung sasabi na in academia, it is not uncommon to deny tenure to a faculty member who is technically competent but does not play well with others. Okay? So, kailangan din to, paano natin ma-detect kung may magandang future behavior itong si employee? By using cognitive ability, test, and job knowledge para ma-predict natin yung contextual performance. Next, decision 2 would be, should dimension be weighted? Once the type of dimension has been determined, the next decision is whether the dimension should be weighted so that some are more important than others. Grading system in the classes you have taken provide a good example for weighting dimension. Okay? Many organizations choose to weight all the performance dimension equally because it is administratively easier to compute and explain to employees. Okay, so sa isang school setting, paano ba natin minamarkahan ang isang student? Okay, kung meron tayo dyang table of specification na midterm, finals, okay, long exam, quizzes, behavior, or the attitude of the student is kailangan naka-specify din yung mga yun doon. Okay? Lahat ng dimension na yon is kailangan alam natin kung paano natin siya i-evaluate, kung paano natin siya gradean. Same with the employees also. Kailangan alam natin lahat ng dimension na yun kung paano natin siya gradean. Hindi lang basta na nakuha natin yung survey. Okay na kapag 360-degree feedback tayo pero we do not know kung paano, what is the correct or what is the appropriate test para i-evaluate natin yung employee. Okay? Alright, so decision 3, use of employee comparison objective, measure, or ratings. Once the type of dimension have been considered, the next decision is whether to evaluate performance by comparing employees with one another. Pwede tayo mag-rank doon using quantitative measures such as attendance and number of units sold, or kung sa sales siya, okay? Or having a supervisor rate, or how well the employee has performed on each of the dimension. Okay? So, paano natin siya gradean? O paano natin makukuha after natin gradean? Pwede tayong mag-come up with a ranking. Sino ang pinakamagaling, sino ang hindi pinakamagaling, para alam naman natin uh, kung kailangan niya ba mag-training, kasi niya, nasa bottom siya, bottom part ng pagiging, or nasa bottom rank ng isang employee, alam natin kung bibigyan natin siya ng training. Okay? Or what are the sanctions kapag nasa bottom ka? Decision tree may also use this. Employee comparison. Pwede tayong mag-rank order, or pwede tayong mag-paired comparison. Si employee 1, ipipaired mo siya kay employee 2. Okay? Pwede tayong force distribution. Okay? Okay, so sa employee comparison, unang step is rank order. I-ranking mo muna sino sa top to bottom. Okay? Tapos, i-prepare mo yung each employee. And first distribution, kukunin mo kung, okay, sino-sino dito ang mga nasa bottom, sino-sino dito ang nasa top, sino-sino dito ang kailangan ng, ang below yung average, sino-sino dito yung magagaling, hindi masyadong magaling, sino dito yung pinakamagaling na employee. Okay? These are the steps. Sa first distribution, tinatawag din itong ranking yan. Kasi, irarank mo siya, and then kukunin mo yung pinaka least performer after ranking. Okay? So, next is the objective measure. A second way to evaluate performance is to use what are commonly called objective or hard criteria. Common type of objective measure include quantity of work, quality of work, attendance, and safety. Okay? We need also the quantity of work. Evaluation of workers' performance in terms of quantity is obtained by simply counting the number of relevant job behaviors that take place. Okay? So, for example, we might judge a salesperson performance by number of units he or she sells. Okay? An assembly line worker performance by the number of bombers she welds, or a police officer performs by the number of arrests makes. Okay? So, i-rate mo siya sa kung gaano, kung salesman siya, kung gaano kadami siya nakapagbenta sa isang buwan, or kung police officer man yan, gaano kadaming mga sindikato ang nahuli niya for the whole month. Okay? Pwedeng sa mga ganung measure mo siya evaluate. Okay? That is for quantity of work. It is important to realize that many factors determine quantity of work other than the employee's ability and performance. Okay? Furthermore, for many people's job, it might not be practical or possible to measure quantity, such as computer programmers, doctor, firefighters, and are examples. Okay, so there are certain works or work na kailangan lang si quantity of, or yung mga ganung bagay, yung tingnan mo siya or the objective measures mo ay the quantity kung gaano kadami. However, sa mga computer programmers, syempre, hindi mo pwedeng ma-rate ang isang tao or magkaroon ka ng objective measure na kung gaano kadaming pasyente. If you are a doctor, ang naggamot nila, okay? Kung gaano kadaming sunog ng sukpo nila if they are firefighters. Okay? Computer programmers, kung gaano kadaming software, if it's software, ang nagawa nila yung na-develop sa isang buwan. Okay? So, dito sa quantity of work, tinitingnan yung what are the factors na nakaka-apekto dun sa measurement. Pwedeng performance, okay, motivation, makaka-apekto sa isang performance ng isang tao. Sorry. Pwedeng yung training mo, baba ang binigay mong training, kaya ganun lang yung quantity of work niya. Yung motivation na binibigay mo dun sa empleyado is least. Yung ergonomic factors niya or yung kaya onti lang yung nagagawa niya is because of the machines ay hindi ganun kaganda. Kailangan din i-consider yung mga ganon. Company policy, okay? Yung paano ba siya sinusupervise ng kanyang heads? Okay, ano ba yung ability na kaya niya kung bakit hindi siya nakakagawa ng maraming task? Okay? Evaluate din natin yung co-workers kasi baka mamaya or i-consider, not evaluate, but to consider also the co-workers kasi baka mamaya ay if it's a team, hindi din pala, kaya pala ganun yung quantity of work kasi hindi pala tumutulong yung mga co-workmates niya. And also, yung working environment, kailangan din natin i-consider sa pag um, evaluate ng quantity of work. Baka kasi yung physical environment niya is hindi akma dun sa place. Halimbawa, kung sales yan, okay, tapos evaluate mo yung isang salesperson sa dami ng kanyang na-ibentang gadgets. Halimbawa ay cellphone. Okay? Tapos nagbigay ka ng standard quota, tapos hindi nyo na-meet. Okay? Baka kasi yung physical environment niya is malayo talaga siya sa kabiasnan, kaya walang pupuntang tao at wala bumibili sa kanya. Okay, so these are the things rather na kailangan nating i i i-measure, not to measure, but to acknowledge as well. Okay, next would be the quality of work. Okay, pwede din tayong gumawa ng um, performance evaluation are going to I'm sorry, pwede tayo gumawa ng evaluating performance by using the quality of work. Halimbawa, i- i-identify natin yung performance ni employee sa kung gaano kadami or kagaano ka-okay yung ginawa niya. Halimbawa, by sa fast food chains. Okay? Yung mga substandard or substandard type of procedure. Okay? Pwede siya doon. It is a quality of work. Another method to evaluate performance is by measuring the quality of the work, what is done. Okay? Titingnan dito kung kunyari, sa isang fast food chain ka, gaano kadami ang errors na nagawa mo sa paggawa or mga substandard na ginawa mo to have some certain kind of food. Okay, pwede natin i-evaluate sa employee using by that one. Next is attendance. Attendance can be separated into three distinct criteria: absenteeism, tardiness, and tenure. Okay? There are a lot of factors why person or an employee is committing with tardiness, absenteeism, and such. Okay? We're going to talk about that in employee motivation also. But this is a great predictor if we would like to give appraisal sa si employee. Titingnan natin kung pala absent ba siya, pala late ba siya, then this will be the source of appraisal. Safety. Employees who follow safety rules and who have no occupational accident do not cost organizers much money, and those who break rules, equipment, and possibly their own bodies. Okay, as with tenure, safety is usually used for research purposes, but it can also be used for employment decisions such as promotion and bonuses. Okay, example sa safety, yung occupational, yung OSH na sinabi natin nakaraan. Kung sa isang company, halimbawa, um, sa isang company may tinatawag na S5 o yung safety rules. Kapag you always follow that one and wala at hindi ka nakakatanggap ng memo na nag-aabay ka doon, is pwede maging sukatan din ito na okay, yung employee na to napaka-maingat siya. Okay, so pwede natin siyang i-appraise, wala siyang record, wala siyang memo para dun sa ganung bagay. Also, pwede din to sa BPO company. Kasi sa BPO company, iniingatan yung safety ng computers. Okay, bawal ka magpasok doon ng food. Gaano kadaming memo ang natanggap mo, okay, dahil sa ilang beses ka nagpasok ng food inside of that organization or inside of that workplace area. Nakadepende yun doon sa kung i-appraise ka ba or bibigyan ka ng self-promotion, ng isang promotion. Next is rating of performance. The most commonly used option in evaluating performance is to have supervisors rate how well employees perform on each dimension. Okay, so with this one, though there are many variations of how these rating skills can be treated, the most common ways of the graphic rating skill and behavioral checklist. Okay, so you may check the book of Amod if what is the diagram for that one. Titingnan lang dyan yung, okay, sa example of behavioral checklist is kung ano yung mga behavior na hindi dapat or dapat na nagawa ng employee. Okay, tapos i-check lang doon para malaman kung gaano kadaming incident yung nagawa niya. Okay, pwede din through graphic rating scale. Okay, these are the example of rating of performance. Pwede tayong mag-graphic rating scale, behavioral checklist, as what I am saying earlier, comparison with other employees, okay, who is doing their task much better, employee A or employee B, frequency of desired behaviors, extent to which organization expectations are met, okay, so although techniques such as behavioral checklists are only slightly more psychometrical sound, they still have some advantages over graphic rating scale because employees are directly involved in creating them. Okay? They tend to see performance evaluation results as being more fair. Okay? Step number 5, syempre kung ini-evaluate si employee ng mga rater, kailangan i-train din natin si rater. Okay? So, make fewer rating errors and recall more training information than do untrained raters or raters receiving information about only job-related behaviors. Meron tayong frame of reference training. Provide raters with job-related information, practice in rating, and examples of rating made expert as well as the rationale behind those expert ratings. The goal of frame of reference training is to communicate the organization's definition of effective performance and to then get raters consider only relevant employee behaviors when making performance evaluation. Okay, so frame of reference training ay nagbibigay din ito ng kung saan ang proper way of training. Okay, siyempre kung ikaw yung rater, dapat you know the job well more than the employee. Kasi ikaw yung magja-judge sa kanila if they're doing task perfectly. Okay, step number 6. We need to observe document performance. The next step in the performance appraisal process is for supervisors to observe employee behavior and document critical incidents. Okay, so bakit natin kailangan i-document lahat ng critical incidents na to? Halimbawa, sa isang fast food chain, okay, so kung marami ka critical incident na nagawa, halimbawa is may kaso ka na, kung ikaw yung counter sa isang fast food chain, may kaso ka na lagi kang short. Kailangan i-document yung bakit ka laging short. And then this will be the basis kung i-appraise ka ba ng supervisor mo. Or kung bibigyan ka ng performance appraisal. And other type of work, halimbawa, BPO naman. Sa BPO, titingnan doon kung ilang beses ka nakapag-disclose ng information which is hindi dapat. Okay, that will be considered as critical incident or memo. Kapag nagawa mo yung mga bagay na yun, this will be the basis kung ang karapat-dapat ka bang i-appraise. Critical incidents should be communicated to the employee at the time they occur. Hindi pwede na magbibigay ka ng critical incident report nang hindi alam ng employee kung ano yung nagawa nilang mali. Kasi, hindi siya magiging aware, magugulat ka na sila bigla, bakit kaya ako binigyan ng supervisor ng critical incident or ng HR ng critical incident? Wala naman akong ginawang mali. So, for them to be aware also. Documentation helps supervisor recall behaviors when they are evaluating performance. Okay, so pwedeng nakalagay ito sa 2015, what are the critical incident that this employee committed inside of that organization. And then, once na magkakaroon ng performance appraisal, kukunin nila tong folder na to with such papers na kung saan, dapat ba natin i-promote itong si employee? Kasi ang dami ng mga critical incidents eh. Okay? That is one of the basis also. Um, for this diagram, there is actual behavior, okay? Observed behavior, process behavior, and recalled behavior. Okay? So, bakit kailangan? It's because ng critical incident para alam natin kung hindi tayo nakabase sa kung ano lang yung mga positive na nakikita natin sa employee. Okay, hindi tayo na-persuade kung ganito kasi ina-acta niya sa akin eh. So, ang bait-bait niya sa akin. Something like that. Yung pala, ang dami ng mga critical incident. Okay? Supervisor tend to recall the following. Okay? Ang mga supervisor, before itong magbigay ng appraisal dun sa employee, nagkakaroon tayo ng mga positive and negative or the advantage and disadvantages of appraisal. Mayroong first impression or the primacy effect. Halimbawa, nakita mo yung employee nung unang pasok siya is medyo hindi pa siya ganun kagaling. Okay, sa isang certain task. So, that is, makukonsider yun sa performance appraisal, dapat hindi ganon. First impression, tuloy nga masasabi, first impression last, or yun yung mas natatandaan ng mga supervisor if they would like to give an appraisal to a certain employee. Next is the recent behavior. Okay, recent behavior, ito yung mga na-acute nila during evaluation. Halimbawa, kung sa 6 months, sabi natin na may semi-annual evaluation tayo bago natin magbigay ng appraise. Kasi there are companies na nagbibigay ng annual appraisal. When we say annual appraisal, it could be 10% of your salary ang madadagdag sa iyo every year. Okay, that is in the law. Okay? Or it depends din sa company if they're going to abide that decision according kay Dole. So, sa recent behavior naman, sasabi dito, with that time frame na within 6 months bago magkaroon ng semi-annual review, ay nakapag-commit ka or sabihin natin 1 month before na magkaroon ng semi-annual evaluation nakapag-commit ka ng isang mistake or nakapag-commit ka ng isang critical incident. So, ito yung mas maaalala nila. Next is unusual or extreme behavior. More common behavior. Halimbawa, more common behavior na nakikita is or unusual behavior is lagi ka nakikita, tumatambay lang, wala kang ginagawa. Okay? Behavior consistent with the supervisor's opinion. If a supervisor likes an employee, she will probably recall only behavior consistent with that opinion. The opposite would be true for a supervisor who dislike the employee. Once you get on someone's bad side, it's hard for to get off of it. Okay? Step number 7 in employee performance record. Step number 7 for performance appraisal is employee performance record. A more formal method for using critical incident is evaluating performance was developed by Flanagan and Burns. For use of General Motors, called the employee performance record, this method consists of 2-color form. Okay, so meron tayong employee performance record na kung saan nilalagay doon kung ano yung mga certain behavior, acquired behavior, incident reports, and the likes. Okay, so, but not all of the company are using this employee performance behavior. This method consists of 2-color form. Okay, so you may find it using the book of Michael Amod, but we're not going to further explain that one. Okay? Yeah, there is. We have here pala. Okay, so alimbawa is knowledge. This form would be you're going to checklist kung sa knowledge neto poor ba, then you're going to document if it's poor or if it's excellent, employee relation, customer relation, accuracy of work. Okay, this is an example of employee employee performance record. Obtaining reviewing objective data. When it's time to appraise an employee performance, a supervisor should first obtain and review the objective data relevant to the employee's behavior. Okay? So, what are the objective if you would like to promote or give appraisal to the employee? Okay? So, hindi lang basta, hindi to pwede maging subjective. Reading critical incident logs. After obtaining objective data, the supervisor should go back and read all the critical incidents written of an employee. Okay? As we were saying, as what I'm saying earlier, reading these incidents should reduce errors of primacy, recency, and attention of unusual information. Okay? Completing the rating form. When critical incident logs have been read and objective data reviewed, the supervisor is ready to assign performance appraisal ratings. While making these ratings, the supervisor must be careful not to make common rating errors involving distribution. Example would be involving halo, proximity, and the contrast effect. Okay? In regards to distribution error are made when a rater uses only one part of rating scale. Example, rate 4 or 5. Okay, so bakit to ay kailangan? Okay, so halimbawa, ay i-relate mo si employee sa distribution error, kunyari ang rating scale mo is 5 is the highest, 4 is almost highest, 3 is tama lang, 2 is satisfactory, then number 1 is needs improvement. So distribution errors, how are you going to identify the rating of 4 and 5? Okay? What are the restriction or ano pinakaiba ni 4 and 5? If you will going to rate an employee. Okay? So, dapat malinaw yon. Kung malinaw kung anong difference ng 4 at saka 5. Next kind of distribution error, leniency error. Because certain raters tend to rate every employee at the upper end in the scale regardless of the actual performance of the employee, it can give discomfort to the supervisor. Don't know the difference between good and bad performance, so they err on positive side. Okay? So, another factor in distribution error is the leniency error. Okay? Next, we have strictness error. Rates every employee at the low end of the scale. Okay? For example, on our 5-point scale, our supervisor rates every A1 or 2. Okay? Yung masyado namang stricto yung rater in regards do sa lower. Okay? So, same din to, kung si leniency error ay hindi niya masyadong lenient ito sa pag-grade kay employee. Ito naman si strictness error is kabaligtaran. Ibig sabihin masyado siyang stricto, kaya siya bibigyan ng 1 and 2. Okay, so this kind of distribution error na kailangan ay na iintindihan ng isang rater. This type of error pose problem for an organization because two employees doing equal work will receive different ratings. If one employee is supervised by a lenient rater and another by a strict rater, this problem can be partially eliminated by having several people rate each employee. Although this is not often feasible, especially in small branch offices with only one manager or supervisors. Ideally, na kailangan ang rater ay mas madami para mas naiiwasan si strictness of error at saka si leniency of error. Yung i-rate mo si employee na sobrang taas kay lenient at saka hindi at saka strictness of error ay i-rate mo naman si employee na sobrang higpit. So, kaya kailangan equal or mas madami ang mga raters. However, this kind of technique is only applicable sa mga malalaking type of company. not applicable for isa lang manager, isa lang supervisor. Naku, sila na yung magre-rate. Okay, next is halo errors. Dito sa halo errors, nalilibelan natin yung tao depende sa kung anong natapos nila. Example, teacher. Okay? Nalilibelan na kapag teacher, dapat organize of things. But there are teachers or there you might encounter, okay, I'm not saying that nila lahat, na um, nagbibigay ng marka. However, hindi not organized rather. Okay? Sugarcoat natin example. Okay, so when we say teacher dapat organized, but there are teachers who isn't organized. Okay? And also psychology major. Okay, when we say psychology major, 'di ba? Dapat magaling ka in cognitive, marunong ka in psychomotor, and marunong ka sa affective. But however, not all psychology major can provide and give that one. Okay? So nalilimitahan ang raters depending do sa natapos ng isang employee. Okay, nagkakaroon ng halo errors. If you want further explanation regarding on halo errors, you may still ask me during synchronous. We also have proximity errors. Proximity errors occur when a rating made on one dimension affects the rating made on the dimension that immediately follows it on the rating scale. Okay? Example, the rater will rate the nearest to the next dimension. Okay? Sa proximity errors. Another example ng proximity errors ay a supervisor gives an employee a rating of 5 on the first dimension because the second dimension is physically located on the rating from the first. There's a tendency to provide the same rating on both the first and second dimension. Okay, so proximity errors. Halimbawa, nirate mo si employee na mataas siya sa physical attributes. Okay? And then yung another dimension na kailangan mong i-rate, halimbawa, na-rate mo na siya ng 5 doon sa number 1. Okay? Na-rate mo siya ng 5 doon sa item number 1, which is the strength niya. Bigyan mo siya ng 5. After ng strength, there is a cognitive. I-rate mo siya depending on the knowledge na meron si employee. Since that, magkasunod si strength at saka itong si cognitive, maaaring mabigyan mo na din siya ng 5. Or in layman's term, ginunshot mo na siya. Okay, yung pag-rate mo ng performance evaluation. Kasi magkakalapit yung mga dimension nila. So what is the difference between proximity and halo errors? Okay, so proximity errors, ito yung nire-rate mo si employee na kung saan ay magkakalapit ang mga dimension na gusto mo. Sa halo error, i-rate mo sa employee depending dun sa maaring natapos nila or sa job title nila. Okay, as what I'm saying earlier. Next, contrast error. The performance rating one person receives can be influenced by the performance of previously evaluated person. Example, the supervisor will rate the employee excellent for doing best in a job. However, in the next month, the employee didn't do well but still rated as excellent. Okay? So, halimbawa, me as an educator o as an instructor, kilala ko si student na magaling sa klase. Because I heard that. Okay, I heard na si student magaling do sa ganito. Okay, maganda din performance niya. If magkakaroon ng contrast error yun, kahit na hindi naman ganun na pinapakita ng student, dahil because of sinasabi ng mga tao, i-relate ko siya na okay, or tataas ako yung grade niya. Though na contrast yun sa nakikita ko. Okay, para mas madali maintindihan. Example natin din si student. And also, same with the employee. Halimbawa, nirate mo si employee as a most productive employee of the year. Okay? Dahil siya yung previous productive of the year, ay kahit na hindi naman gumawa ng productive si employee, okay, for the next year, ginawa mo pa rin siyang productive employee. Kasi nga, in contrast yun dun sa nagawa. Parang, nalilimitahan, okay, nabubulag, in contrast, okay, or nagbibigay ng kabaligtaran doon sa ginagawa dahil nga na previously rate mo na si employee. Example number 2, the supervisor rates the employee by comparing the other employee. Okay? Halimbawa, ay mas better to si employee A kaysa kay employee B. Kaya tataasan ko si employee A kasi mas better siya kay employee B. Example, in school setting para maintindihan, ang isang teacher ni-rate niya or bigyan ng grade na 1.25 ang isang student. Okay? Kasi, kinumpare niya si student A kay student B. Okay? Na si student B, hindi naman nagpa-perform ng maayos in school. Okay? So, tinaasan niya ngayon yung grade ni ni student. Okay? If you want further explanation for that one, you may stay ask me during synchronous. Contrast error, assimilation. To get better feel for rate or error, change of supervisor. Okay? So, meaning to say, changing of supervisor, pwedeng iba yung mag-rate, okay, sa contrast error. Para, halimbawa, if a new supervisor reads that the employee's previous evaluation were excellent, but she observed poor performance by the employee, she will probably continue to give excellent ratings. Okay, paano natin maiiwasan si contrast error? Palitan natin yung supervisor na mag-evaluate sa kanya. Okay? Change the supervisor na mag-evaluate para maiwasan yung contrast error. Okay, halimbawa, ang mga nag-rate kay employee A dati ay mga nakita mo, ikaw si supervisor, nakita mo na ang behavior ni employee or yung job appraisal niya or performance appraisal niya for the past months ay sabihin natin 100 perfect. Okay? Tapos dahil sa nagkaroon ng halo effect, okay, ng contrast error, malilimitahan ka ngayon para bigyan siya ng mataas din. So, paano gagawin? Change the supervisor who give rate or ratings dun sa employee. Okay? Low reliability across raters. There are 3 major reasons for this lack of reliability. First, raters often commit the rating errors previously discussed. Okay? So, halo, leniency, and the likes. Okay? Okay? So, second, raters can often have very different standards and ideas about the ideal employee. Okay? Kaya mababa, low reliability across the raters. Third, as mentioned earlier in the chapter, 2 different raters may actually see very different behaviors by the same employees. Okay? We have now the sampling problems. Performance appraisals are typically conducted once or twice a year, as we mentioned earlier. Oh, naulit lang ata siya. Okay, we have recency effect. Okay, such effect penalizes workers who performed well during most of the period but tailed off toward the end, and it rewards workers who saved their best for until just before the evaluation. Okay, merong recency effect dahil sa nakagawa ng good sa employee, yun yung mas maaalala natin within the 6 months. Okay? Or bago magkaroon ng evaluation or performance appraisal, ay kung ano yung recent behavior na ginawa, okay, ni employee, is yun yung magre-retain. Sampling problems. Infrequent observation. Many manager or supervisor do not have opportunity to observe a representative sample of the employee's behavior. Okay? So, first, managers are often so busy with their work that have no time to walk on the floor. Okay? So, these are the example na infrequent observation. Hindi nakikita ng isang rater or ni isang manager or supervisor yung ginagawa ng employee kasi nga sobra siyang busy. Second, reason managers usually do not make accurate observation kasi nga when the supervisor is absent, an employee may break rules. Okay? So dahil nga, oh, wala naman si manager, wala naman si supervisor, hindi na lang kung gagawa ng maayos, is substandard ko na lahat ng mga process dito na kung ikaw man ay naka-assign sa kitchen or ikaw man ay naka-assign as employee or merong employee na naka-assign sa factory, dahil wala sa supervisor, hindi mo gagalingan or hindi mo aayusin yung trabaho. Cognitive processing observe behavior. We have observation behavior. Creators who are familiar with the job being evaluated recall more judgment about performance but fewer behaviors than do raters who are unfamiliar with the job. Okay, so kung si raters ay masyadong familiar, okay, sa isang specific type of job at alam na alam niya talaga yung flow, ay maaari maging stricto siya. Okay? Or mas madami siya maging judgment regarding doon. Kung si reader naman ay hindi maalam the specific job, maaaring taasan niya yung performance evaluation nito ng employee. Next, the decrease in memory accuracy over time can be reduced if several rather than one are used to evaluate performance. Okay? The decrease in memory accuracy over time can be reduced if several rather than one are used to evaluate performance also. Halimbawa, hindi, kung ikaw yung rater tapos bibigyan mo siya ng performance appraisal, ay hindi ganun, hindi documented lahat. Inobserve mo lang siya, ay kasi si ganito, ganyan. Si employee A, ang ginawa niya is, naging selective. Kung ano lang yung nagre-retain sa memory, doon mo lang i-rate si employee. Okay? Not the whole process. Cognitive processing observed behavior, but even though memory-based rating led to more distortion, in many circumstances, they are more accurate than ratings made immediately after the behaviors occur. Why? Kasi nga, details siya sa'yo, even though hindi lahat or naging selected ka dun sa kung ano yung nag-retain sa'yo while observing yung employee bago mo siya i-rate. Cognitive processing of observed behavior, emotional state, the amount of stress under which a supervisor operates also affect the performance rating. Halimbawa, kung si rater ay may nangyari sa kanya towards dun sa family niya or not having a good relationship with his or her partner, okay, so mas stress siya and tapos siya, that specific day, siya yung rater, makaka-apekto ngayon yung rating scale ng employee. Okay? Bias. Raters who like the employees being rated may be more lenient, less accurate in their ratings that would raters who neither like nor dislike their employee. Okay? Step number 8. Communicate appraisal results to employees. Most important use of performance evaluation data is to provide feedback to the employee and assess their strength and weakness so that further training can be implemented. Okay? So, although this feedback and training should be an ongoing process, semi-annual evaluation might be the best time for formally discuss employee performance. Okay? So, after mo i-rate si employee, nagkaroon ka ng observation, nagkaroon ka ng scaling kung paano mo siya niratean, nagkaroon ka, dinisregard mo yung mga halo effect, recency effect, proximity effect, proximity, not effect, but proximity error. Itong mga error na to ay i-discuss mo kung ano yung mga kailangan baguhin ni employee. Not only by nirate mo na si employee tapos hindi mo na siya bigyan ng appraisal tapos iniwanan mo na siya ganun para alam ni employee kung ano yung babaguhin niya after the rating. Most organizations or supervisors spend a few minutes with employees every 6 months to tell them about the score they received during the most recent evaluation period. This process is probably the norm because most managers do not like to judge others. Because of this dislike, they try to complete the evaluation process as quickly as possible. Okay? Alright. So, very understandable one naman to. Okay? So, what do we do? Prior to the interview, bago natin bigyan ng performance appraisal si employee, first is allocate time. Both the supervisor and employee must have time to prepare for the review interview. Both should be allowed at least an hour to prepare before an interview and at least an hour for the interview itself. Okay? Schedule mo proper interview. Sabihin mo kay employee na the interview, let's read it first. The interview location should be a neutral place that ensure privacy and allows the supervisor and the employee to face one another without a desk between them as a communication barrier. So, okay, very, very self-explanatory. Bakit? Kasi, kung may makakaalam ng evaluation ng isang employee, dapat si supervisor, si employee yun. Okay, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin or chismis iba na si employee na ganito, alam mo ba, ganito ginawa ko kasi ganyan, ganito, ganyan, ganito. Okay, so dapat you have a proper place. There is a proper type of communication, one-on-one talk. What are the things or improvements that needs to be improved by for the employee. Review interviews are commonly scheduled 6 months after an employee begins working for the organization. Meaning to say, halimbawa, in-interview mo si employee ng 6 months, okay? Bago si employee, within that 6 months, sabihin natin, well, we have a DOLE law na kung saan kapag 6 months na si employee, kailangan hindi mo na siya pwedeng ilagay sa probation, okay? To add that one. Okay? After ni employee, na ibibigay mo sa kanya kung ano yung, i-review mo yung interview na kung saan, ano yung mga nakuha ko dito from previous employee. What are the things na kailangan niyang ma-improve na nasabi siya sa akin dati. Okay? And we talk about it already. So, for this, after 6 months, ang gagawin mo ay review mo yung mga data na meron ka for the previous months. Okay? Para pag kinaharap mo si employee, alam mo kung nagbago ba, kung kunyari poor yung performance ni employee, titingnan mo ngayon kung nagbago ba siya after 6 months ng another evaluation mo or other performance appraisal mo after mo makapagbigay ng feedback. Okay. So, next is preparing for interview. Preparing for interview, this step is important because the quality of feedback given to employees will affect their satisfaction with the entire performance appraisal process. Employee should rate her own performance using the same format as the supervisor. The employee also should write down specific reasons and examples that supports the rating that she gives her to itself, well as the ideas personal development. Ngayon, nagkaroon tayong 360 feedback. Okay? So, 360 feedback, nirate natin si employee by peer, by supervisor, by subordinates, customer, if applicable, and the likes. Bago mo interviewin si employee, dapat merong self-appraisal din na ginagawa para i-compare mo or magkaroon ng realization si employee na kung sa palagay mo ba yung attitude mo or yung performance mo, why ay kung ang highest 5 is 5. Okay? So, nakakatulong ito para magkaroon ng realization si employee sa rating niya, sa sarili niya, at saka nirate sa kanya ng supervisor, nirate sa kanya ni peer, during performance evaluation. Okay? Next, during the interview, once the employee and supervisor are feeling comfortable as they are going to get, the supervisor should communicate the following. Number 1, the role of performance appraisal. Para saan na ito ginagawa? Okay, sasabihin mo kay employee na, okay, you know what, meron tayong kinandak na performance appraisal. And then, ito ay para bigyan ka ng appraisal. Okay? Para makita kung dapat ka ba naming i-promote. Bigyan taasan namin yung salary mo. Okay? Or kailangan ka ba namin tanggalin sa trabaho? Okay? Sabihin mo sa kanya during interview, what is the purpose? Kung bakit kayo nagkakandak ng ganon. Second, how the performance appraisal was conducted. Okay? Sasabihin mo sa kanya na Nakapagganda kami, nagpa-rate kami ng 360 degree. Okay? Ginawa namin to sa mga customer, sa peers, sa co-workmates, sa subordinates, and the likes. Okay? Number 3, how the evaluation process was accomplished. The expectation that the appraisal interview will be inactive and the goal of understanding and improving performance. Okay? So, paano nyo pinagawa yung mga ganung bagay na yun? Okay? So, lahat yung sasabihin mo during the interview. Step 9, terminate employees. Hindi natin maiiwasan na kapag si employee ay hindi nagbago yung attitude na i-terminate natin siya. Okay? And that is very natural na mag-terminate kay employees. Okay? But there's a proper way for terminating employees also. Okay? Sabi natin sa previous lesson number 5 na kailangan, it's a different, it's rejection of employees, sorry. For this one, performance appraisal results are also used to make positive personal decisions such as raises the promotion. Unfortunately, there are times when the manager have to terminate an employee his employment. Over the next few pages, we will discuss the legal aspect of terminating an employee. So, kailangan, kung hindi pumasok sa standard ng pag-appraisal sa employee, dumaan ito sa tamang process kung bakit mo siya ito-terminate. So, para hindi din makasuhan si employer. Okay? Employment at will doctrine. Okay? So, these are the things na kailangan i-consider in federal law. Okay? State law, ano sinasabi? Provision of federal or state law, ang public policy interest, contracts, implied contracts, covenants of good faith and fair dealing. In the Philippines, meron din tayo niyan. Pwedeng pumasok dyan si DOLE, company policy, ano yung sinasabi sa contracts. Kapag ba sinabi sa kontrata mo na kapag hindi ka nag-improve or after ng 3 training at hindi ka naging okay na employee or hindi nag-improve yung performance mo, is kailangan ka namin i-terminate. Meron ba nakalagay na ganun sa contract? Kasi kung meron, the HR or also the supervisor or the manager can give this one also to this employee. Okay? Can remind them na, dahil sa ito nakalagay sa contract, kapag hindi ka, halimbawa, hindi ka naka-reach ng quota, kung salesman ka man, ng 3 beses, is kailangan ka namin i-terminate. That's why, or sa company policy as well. Okay? So, all the policies, kailangan sinusunod. Para, ma-explain mo kay employee kung ano dapat yung mga things, kung bakit sila terminate. Okay? Legal reasons for terminating employees. Probationary period. Employees can be terminated more easily during probationary period than any other time. Okay, so here in the Philippines, meron tayong okay, probi ka muna 6 months or 5 months. Okay? Kapag nakita namin na okay ka, we will observe you. We will absorb, we will absorb you here in the company. Okay? Mas madaling terminate si employee kung siya ay nasa probationary period. Okay? Kasi, pag lumagpas ka sa probationary, dapat irregular ka na according to Department of Labor Codes. Okay? Irregular ka na ni employer. Okay? And dito, dahil sa mas madali siya ma-terminate, dahil sa employee and sa probationary period, onti lang yung mga benefits na nakukuha niya. Kapag pumasok na sa pagiging regular, mas maaaring full na yung benefits niya. Kaya, mas madali din tanggalin kasi yung mga benefits and other things na nakasaad sa kontrata ay may ibibigay mo. Okay? Legal reason for terminating employees, violation of company rules. Okay? This is what I always say. I understand that if employed, I have the right to end my employment with halimbawa, the company is sorry industry. Likewise, I understand my employment with sorry industry is not for any definite period of time. And sorry industries has the right to terminate my employment with or without cause and with or without notice. I understand that no representative of certain industries is authorized to imply any contract for permanent employment. Okay? So, if you agreed with this one during hiring process, okay? So, pwede kang i-terminate na ni employer, okay, during your probationary, and also kahit hindi ka probationary kung meron nakalagay sa contract mo na ganyan. Okay, and usual naman 'to na nakalagay sa kontrata. If you do mistake that is beyond sa company rules, pwede kang i-terminate. And since you agreed with that one, wala kang habol if they terminate you kasi nga halimbawa absenteeism or yung performance mo is hindi maganda. Violation of company rules also. Progressive discipline. The longer an employee has been in an organization, the greater the number of steps that must be taken to correct her behavior. So discipline can begin with something simple such as counseling or an oral warning, move on to a written warning or probation, and end with steps such as reduction in pay, demotion, or worse is termination. For violation of some rules, progressive discipline is always necessary. It is probably safe to say that an employer can terminate an employee who steals money or shoot someone at work. Okay? Legal reason for terminating employee. Okay? So, inability to perform. Okay? Based sa job, these are the legal reason bakit kailangan natin tanggalin si employee. Number one, inability to perform. And kasakop dito is yung nakita mo sa job analysis, mababa, have concrete relevant standards that have been communicated to employees, involve multiple behavioral measures of performance, include several raters, each whom receive training in standardized and formal, provide opportunity for an employee to appeal. Okay? Determination meeting. Prior to the meeting, bago may terminate si employee, the first step is to ensure that the legal process has been followed. Okay? So, kailangan lahat ng legal guidelines is nasunod. Next bullet would be the next step is to determine how much help if an organization wants to offer the employee. Halimbawa, terminate mo si employee, hindi pwede na iiwanan mo lang doon sa employee. Mag-provide ka dahil sa hindi maayos ang training mo, pwede ka muna sigurong tatanggalin ka muna namin, tapos, after ka namin terminate, dahil nga sa ganito paraan, is pwede ka ulit mag-apply sa amin kapag maayos na yung attendance mo, or kapag, dahil sa may mga sinusunod tayo, kailangan ka namin terminate at hindi mo nagawa yung mga yun, pasensya, something like that. Okay? The final step is to schedule an appropriate place, time for the meeting occur. Okay? Rather than late on Friday, sabi dito, on the meeting, afternoon, as a tradition, the meeting should take place on Monday or Tuesday so that the employee has an opportunity to seek advice and organization has a chance to talk to its employees. Okay? So, kailangan, imbes na mag-terminate tayo ng employee ng Friday, kailangan daw, in proper termination process, i-terminate natin siya. The meeting should take place on Monday or Tuesday so that the employee has opportunity to seek advice and the organization has a chance to talk to its employees. Okay? Na tatanggalin na namin si ganito kasi ganyan-ganto. Okay? Dapat pinapaalam din ng during prior on that one na yung mga pinapaalam din sa ibang empleyado na ganito para hindi sila mabigyan, ay wala na pala si ganito. Okay? Next, during the meeting, the supervisor should get the point about terminating the employee. The employee usually knows why she has been called in, and there is no reason to prolong the agony. The supervisor should rationally state the reason for the decision. Express gratitude for the employee's effort, if sincere, and offer whatever assistance the organization intends to provide. Okay? So, ganun siya. Next, after the meeting, once the meeting is over, the natural reaction of the supervisor is to feel guilty. Okay, so, syempre, sino nga ba naman ang naging part mo si employee, tapos ikaw yung supervisor, is mafe-feel guilty ka. However, to relieve this guilt, the supervisor should review the facts that she gave the employee every chance to improve. Okay, but the employee chose not to. When an employee is fired, other employees will be tense, Consequently, it is important to be honest with the other employees about what happened. Tinerminate ko si employee A, guys, or kasi ganting nangyari. Okay? At the same time, negative statements about the terminated employee's character must be avoided. Okay? Example, same with student who ask for a grade. Okay? So, as an instructor, halimbawa, that that is the same with an employee na bumabagsak. With the students rather na bumabagsak, na nangingi ng another thing. Okay? Offer the students then na bibigay ko to as halimbawa kasi not all of you has a background as a work experience. Okay? So, ilagay natin sa ganito si bata or si student ay nag-ask siya na, Sir, pasama ko, something like that. Okay? But you gave chance already to the bata na mag-improve siya or to the student na mag-improve siya. However, kung hindi nag-improve itong si student, kailangan i-explain mo na mabuti, pasensya ka na, pero kailangan ka tabigyan ng 5, kailangan i-repeat yung subject. Huwag ka mag-alala, ako pa rin naman maging instructor mo, gagabayan pa rin naman kita. Something like that. Okay, so never normal to an supervisor and also to an educator to feel guilt kapag may binabagsak silang student. However, kailangan kasi masunod to mga protocol na to. Okay, para magkaroon ka ng proper guidelines inside of, regardless if it's school or it is inside of the company. All right, so that is the end of our lesson number 7. And if you still have question me, ask me during synchronous. And thank you for listening for this very long recording. Okay?